Okay, we're learning the Mammar. First Mammar Torah Or Lech Lecha, which starts Inyan Lech Lecha V'Yerech L'Masav. The idea of Adam, the idea of Lech Lecha and V'Yerech Masav, the travels of Avram Avinu. Okay, so the PDF that was sent, and that's it's the page 3. Right, so it says like this. Inyan Lech Lecha V'Yerech Masav Mimata Milmaila. What does it mean to go from Hey Barbara, to go from below above, and Milmaila Lamata, from above down. Lashem Hanira, Lashem Stam. The two levels. One is that he's going to Hashem who revealed himself to him, and the idea of Hashem Stam. So we're talking here about Abram Avinu's travels, and the first commandment of this week's parsha, Hashem tells Abram Lech Lecha, and he says he went on his travels. So the Rebbe says that there's travels that's from milmata l'mayla, from below above, and there's a travel that's from above down. We'll see what that means. And there's, where is he traveling to? L'Hashem Hanira, to God that revealed himself, to Hashem Stam, without the idea of the revelation. Okay, so here we're going to introduce the idea of what does it mean to go from above down. It means you're standing from a place of high and bringing that as low as it could go into this mundane world, or to take the mundane and elevate it to the spiritual. So Hine, first you have to understand what Avram is, because Hashem is telling Avram Lech Lecha. So what's Avram? Hine Avram, again, this is Avram before the Hey, so it's Aleph Beis Reish Mem. Hine Avram hu Seichel Hanela Mikol Rayim. It's a Hasidic concept, a Kabbalistic concept, means Haseichel Nelm, the hidden intellect that's above any understanding or any idea. It means it can't be articulated even within the intellect itself. It can't be, there's no way to grasp it. Seichel Hanelam, it's a hidden idea that has there's a hidden intellect that has no ideas. You can't really attach itself. It's almost like the power of the ability to think, that's why the name Avram without the Hey is Av, the father, which is Chachma, Ram, very elevated. And what's the idea? What's Lech Lecha mean? It means Lech Lecha of Avram himself is Seichel Hanel Mikol Rayin, a high level of intellect that's beyond any understanding or any idea. So what's the Avodah? What's the Lech Lecha? What's the commandment? V'tzarech lamshichai bebechinas gila. You have to take that hidden idea or the hidden intellect and to bring it into to reveal it. The Hainu, what does that mean? That in the idea of the Seder Shtalshus in the chain of creation, it should go from the level of God's intellect that's above understanding, not an understanding that we know, not an identified understanding that we could relate to. To bring it down from level to level, ad soif, to the lowest point, meaning to the world into the idea of malchus, of the receptacle, and from malchus into the world of creation. And what's the point of it all? That the revelations of Avram, meaning what's Avram, is not a revelation of himself. Avram represents the revelations of godliness. So to bring the revelations of godliness, of God's wisdom, chachma, that's beyond the chachma of creation. It means there's the chachma, like there's the intellect that a person has invested in an idea to create something. That's seichel. That's not nelam. It's not hidden, and it's not mikol rayin. Every idea, there's an idea. It means the idea is to create. So that's the chachma of creation. Kulam b'chachma asisa. God created the world. It's called a chachma of creation. That's not a chachma. That's not a hidden chachma. But the idea of Avram is to take the hidden that's beyond creation and to bring it down into creation. So he says, "Bechinas chakim v'lo b'chachma yediyah." Bechinas yeridus madregas atzay v'tachzu legila b'biyah, to bring down the God, the chachma that's beyond creation, that's a seichel and elma, hidden seichel of any idea. I mean, it's not relatable. You can't touch it, so to say, into the world of creation. Gan Eden Elium, which means to bring it all the way down to the world of Gan Eden, the higher Gan Eden, which is way above our level. B'tachton, or the next level of Gan Eden, is still above our world. Tainuk hanivroim sheyochel lekabe gilia tainuk. So what is it? What are we bringing down? So now he describes what we're bringing down. It's tainuk hanivroim sheyuchelu lekabel gilia tainuk. There's the pleasure of the creation that they should be able to understand the pleasure. I mean, the pleasure of godliness should be something that's relatable. It's not something that's beyond, so to say, the pay grade of creation. That they should be able to actually take in, and it should be something that's that there's kalim, there's vessels to participate in the pleasure of the pleasure of godliness. It means anything that's in this world has a source in holiness. If there's a concept of pleasure in this world, is because that's the corrupted pleasure that came into being, into the world, so to say, whether it's, even if it's in a permissible way, but if it's not for holiness, it came with the sin of the came into the reality with the sin of the eating of the tree of knowledge. But true pleasure, holy pleasure, is the source of that all. So the holy pleasure is godliness, and for a person to experience the pleasure of godliness means that there's a revelation. You can't have. This is one of the rules of Chassidus. That's why Tainug, the world of pleasure, is in Bina's understanding. Chachma, because Chachma, which is the initial part of an idea before it's been developed, right? If you have an idea that's before it's been developed, you don't properly understand it, you can't take pleasure in the idea because you don't properly understand it. So if it's still hidden, so it's not something that's there's no pleasure. The pleasure is when what they call the aha moment. Oh wow, that's the idea, and you're taking pleasure in the idea. So you have to understand it. That's why the Tainug, pleasure, is or keser, the crown, is revealed in Bina understanding, and that's the idea that Avram has to take the Seichel Hanelm. He's not just Chachma, but a hidden Chachma, and to bring it down to the effect that should be able to be Tainug pleasure means that's well understood. It's revealed within this world. Okay. This idea is it's a Kabbalistic concept, chesed, which is giving, that's revealed at the opening of the amma at the point of, let's say, intercourse. That's the idea of what he's saying over here. Which that's a moment of connection, and the moment of giving, which is chesed. So that moment, in the moment of connection, the connection should be in a way that there's a pleasure in there. There's something that's understood. There's a relationship. It's not a one-sided thing. That's why Abram sits at the entrance of the gate, the entrance of the tent, because it's at the entry point where he's going from what's within. The tent is his safe space to the opening, which is to the outside world. But how do you reveal it? See, the thing is, if it wasn't revealed before, means it's beyond revelation. So how do you can't just reveal something that's not being revealed. There has to be a change in what's coming down. So then that there could be a concept of the pleasure to understand it. So it has to be downgraded from its high level in order for the receptacle, the keli, the makabel, the receiver, to be able to understand it, comprehend it. It's the same idea of teacher and student, right? If a teacher teaches a great idea, as the teacher understands, and the students above the student's understanding, there's no makabel, there's no receiver, there's no timing, there's no pleasure. He or she doesn't understand what the teacher's talking about. So therefore, it has to go through the process of tzimtzum. Means that the idea itself, the chachma itself, especially what we call seichel hanelam, the hidden chachma that's beyond even any idea, has to be downgraded and contracted. So there should be the vessel, the keli, the receiver should be able to receive it. It has to come through concealing the absolute, so to say, the full version of the idea of the revelation, and has to be concealed. So chesed, Abram is giving, is the chesed. Yitzchak is gvura, because the gvura is the tzimtzum, is the din, judging how much, so it should be able to be received. Vahi erev, like it says, first comes night, and after the night, which is the tzimtzum, vahi boker, comes morning, and then yom echad, you have a day. Means without the erev first, without the night coming first, then the day won't be able to handle the light. And the point of it means what's the intention in the bigger picture of it? That God wants, because if there would be basically a revelation, you have to remember, guys, we're learning Torah Or. Torah Or is is much different than Likutei Torah. Means Beraishit Shemos is Torah, the Alter Rebbe is Torah Or. Vayikra Bamidbar Dvarim is Likutei Torah. Likutei Torah is much more explained. The Torah Or is what's called more oisias, words, ideas. We have to navigate between the ideas to understand what's being said here. So the Alter Rebbe says that the idea is that shia yesh bottle, that there should be a yesh. God wanted with creation there should be something, means something that feels that it's separate from God, and that separateness should nullify itself. If there would be the revelation without the darkness first, without the air of the night first, without the tzimtzum first, then the world, the creation, even if God would create the world that way, the creation would be totally nullified to God. There would be no challenge. You'd just be seeing, there wouldn't be the decision to nullify yourself. You wouldn't exist. You would, even if you did exist, you exist in a way that you would be totally nullified. So God wanted that there should be yesh. That's the point of creation. I'm something, and I choose to nullify myself, to nullify myself to godliness. The Hainu bechinis yesh. There should be something ubatal, and that something nullifies itself. So that's the idea. The first idea we're talking about. That what's lech lecha? Hashem is telling Avram, take the section hanelam, the hidden intellect. That's beyond the. I mean, there's creation. That's the setting, but the reason behind the creation is that there should be people and worlds and concepts and angels, all the levels, and they should be each one on their level of a yesh or something and nullify themselves to Hashem. And that's the idea of lech lecha. And to have that relationship is when it goes both ways. When you nullify yourself, then you're receptacle to the light, and when the light is there, it's going to help you in your self nullification. Okay, base. And so, how did one of the conditions for this to be revealed, for the Avram to reveal himself? There's two main themes of Parashas Lech Lecha. I mean, besides the idea that we're being introduced to Avram and Sarah, or Avram and Sarai at the time, is the leaving where they were, going to Eretz Yisrael, which is the travels, the masas, like he says, Vayech Masav, whether it's in Egypt, out of Egypt, dealing with Lot, all that's one concept, and the idea of Mila, the end of the idea of circumcision. So in order for there to be a completion of Lech Lecha, that Avram should be able to reveal himself, and it should be in a healthy revelation, first, Sarach Liyas Mitzvah Smila, there has to be circumcision. Meaning to say, what the Rebbe is introducing here is a major concept, that although Mitzvah Smila comes when he's 99 years old, and the Torah tells us that he was, when he's 90 years old, and the Torah tells us that he's 75 years old when he leaves his father's home, right? So it's 15 years. It's a 15-year process for the Lech Lecha, because Lech Lecha itself doesn't happen properly unless there's Mila. So for this to be properly revealed, there has to be the mitzvah of circumcision. Meaning, why? To get rid of the foreskin. In Chassidus and in Kabbalah, foreskin is a negative force, both because it blocks and also because it siphons. And he klipa sneiga chefefes. It's a klipa. It's not a klipa like a hard klipa, which is from the absolute impurities, but it's a klipas noga. In Chassidus we know klipas noga. Tani explains klipas noga is the things that are. It's like something that's permissible, like food. Food is klipas noga. It's not holy. You didn't do anything holy with it. If you eat it, then you use that energy with intention for that eating to serve Hashem, then it becomes holy. If you do it to use it for other reasons, so then you bring it down to the. I mean, it could go either way. That's what klipas noga is, and that's what's the foreskin. It could go either way. Because you don't want the foreskin to siphon off the revelation. Because if you want to reveal yourself, there's something being revealed in every revelation. The downside of revelation. This works across the board in any situation in life. Anytime you expose yourself, anytime you put yourself out there, so to say. So you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable that they could be taken the wrong way. People like to stay unnoticed. Let me stay in the background. Let me stay in the shadows. Why do I have to put myself out? And then I'm vulnerable to the consequences of being out there. So same thing over here. Shlo yinika, if you're going to be mashpia, which is the bringing down the seichel hanelam. So there's a light coming down. So everyone wants to take from that light. We're turning to page 4. She efshar lahamshich bechinas gile beoidei sham, because you can't properly reveal the seichel hanelam, this great light that Avram is trying to reveal, which is the tainug of, he said before, what is the great light? It's tainug, the pleasure and godliness. So that means, and the idea is that we should take pleasure and godliness as we are. It means although we're looking to refine ourselves as people, we're not losing ourselves. It's not that you become totally batal b'metzias. It's bitul hayesh we're talking about over here. It means you're something and you nullify yourself as you are in taking pleasure in Hashem. And there's higher levels in that. And the idea eventually is to reach bitul b'metzias, to nullify yourself in your existence. But that's a process. So he says, you can't have a revelation of the tainug as long as the foreskin is there. Guys, hold on a second. Is it okay? Excuse me, sir? Excuse me? Hello? I'm giving a class. Okay. So he says, and after Avram goes to the mitzvah of circumcision, so then it says he changes his name, that he goes from Avram, which is more of a personal characteristic, that he's high, to Avamon Goyim, becomes the father of nations. Any movement, what does it mean that God that Avram all of a sudden, because of circumcision, he becomes the father of all the nations? What changed in Avram? He had a circumcision, so now he's a circumcised person. I mean, before he was uncircumcised, now he's circumcised. Why does the circumcision make him the father of all nations? Ella. So the Alter Rebbe explains. Because then he becomes. What does it mean to be the father of all nations? What's a father? I mean, you're nourishing your children. So he's able to give to the people. He's able to give to the nations. He's able to elevate to the nations. But that's as long as he gets rid of the foreskin. He's able to reveal. Because like it says, what is the righteous before the Shekhinah of Hashem? Kiner b'fnei avuka, like a flame before a big fire. That the small flame gets nullified to the great fire. And therefore, in order for that experience to happen, that he should be able to refine and to bring out all the sparks of the nations, there has to be that the revelation comes from a pure place. Like it says, Galul Edom, when the Jewish people went to Edom, to the exile of Edom, Shechina Mom, God is with them, because there's an experience there. It's not a punishment. There's something happening. They have to take out the sparks. Why did we go? What's the higher purpose of Golus, of exile? It's not the idea of the punishment or because we did something bad, so we're in timeout, or worse. To bring converts. And the converts is not just people, which is also, but like the Mittler Rebbe says, there weren't enough converts for the I mean, with all due respect, for there to be 2,000 years of Golus. It's all the sparks. Shebeklipas Noga, that's in the Klipa Noga, the low, so to say, the more elevated level of Klipa. Elevated means it's not as bad. Shebemachalim, that's in the food, Mashkim, that's in the drink. Shemis Alim, that they get elevated, they go up to holiness. When they bring the light, but the light that attracts the sparks. This is an important rule. That's why he has to have circumcision, because if you're going to try to do the Avodah of Birurim and you're still uncircumcised, I mean, you're yourself still tied down and vulnerable to the negativity. So it's not so clear what's going to happen over there. And even though if you're going to attract the sparks, and even if you can bring the sparks to bring them to the proper place where they're supposed to be, of holiness, without being corrupt, without agenda, without vulnerability, is you have to be on a higher level. And only then can the sparks come back to the flame properly. So it means for Avram, so the beginning process is that we have to bring a revelation. Avram, take the father, meaning the chachma, the hidden pleasure of godliness, and bring it down, lech lecha, bring it down to the world. But in order for that to be done properly and be able to be effective and to go out to the world, and we know that Zohar says Sarah did even more. Avram, went to Mitzrayim and stayed in the hotel. Sarah went to Paro's house. So to be successful in that, and both of them as a team were successful, and the Torah testifies about them, was because they were naked of any agenda, which is what the foreskin represents. This is what Hashem is telling him. And Alter Rebbe says this is the whole parsha. Avram, God tells to Avram, which is Avram, like we said before, the high level of intellect. You have to go down and reveal. Because only when you're going to go down, to stay in your place of comfort, for the idea to be in your head, and this is what we're going to see, is not only does the world benefit, but Avram benefits. In order for you to fulfill your purpose and to be able to mirror, to fix, to elevate, is only through you have to go. You have to leave your high place. Ki ad Avram, because until Avram started Avodah of Lech Lecha, is how Yishvir Sakeim Daramabel. Everything was corrupt and broken vessels. There was all this energy, and the vessels were broken. There was no light connected. It means, what does it mean, broken vessels? We've learned that the vessels is the definition. That's a kindness. But take the holiness out of kindness, then it's a corrupt kindness. Take the holiness out of severity, specifically, and din and judgment, and it's harsh judgment. So and these are all broken pieces that had to be picked up, and that didn't start until Avram. And the word of fixing started from the Avodah of Avram. And therefore Hashem tells Avram, Vayimer Hashem el Avram, Lech Lecha. What's Lech Lecha mean? Yitzias Shema Mesakin Mevar. Take out your tools. The name of Ma of 45, which is how you would write the name Yud Ke Vav Ke if you would spell out the letters, right? So we have the actual Yud Ke Vav Ke is 26, but if you spell out the letters Yud Vav Dalet is 10, right? And then so there's different ways to spell it out. You can use different letters. You can use Hey, could be Hey Aleph or Hey or Hey Yud Yud. So there's different ways to spell out Hashem's name to know the number value. And the number value 45 is one of the ways that represent the concept of fixing. But Avram has to keep on going lower and lower. That's why he kept on traveling south. Avram, Bechinas Yisoid Abba, to the essence of Chachma, all the way down to Eretz, which is Malchus, the world of the receptacle, which is the world of communication. Means as long as a person has it within themselves, like the difference between Rachel and Leah, right? Leah is midos, she's inside, she's thought, she's full of thought, full of ideas, but she's not communicative. And Rachel is communicative, she's the world of Malchus, she communicates. Avram has to go all the way down to communication. Communication means there's someone else on the other side that you're communicating to, hopefully, right? And then how far do you go down? Asher Reka, to the place that I'm going to show you. What does it mean, Asher Reka? I'm going to show you. We said, go to, so the simple idea is like Rashi says, that Hashem wanted to give Avram Avinu full benefit of the mitzvah, so he didn't tell him exactly what he didn't give him like a full plan in the beginning. He told it to him slowly, so Avram Avinu should continue listening and continue getting this chusim, the merits of listening to Hashem. But over here, the Alter Rebbe is saying Asher Reka is not just about the land I'm going to show you. Asher Reka appears erev egad la'ischa ba'atzimcha. You want to know who you are. You want to find out who your true person is, your true, not only your purpose, but your strengths, what you could accomplish is only you're going to go out. To sit in your own space and try to maximize your potential without being communicative, without lowering yourself, to affect others, to go and fix, you're not going to find your true self. Asher Reka is not just with the place that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you who you are. Lech lecha, go to yourself. Pirsh arva gad la'ischa ba'atzmcha. I'm going to show you and elevate you to yourself. And only through Mila, through the proper process of communicating in the right way, with the right purpose, is you're going to find your purpose. Then you're no longer going to be Avram, a person that has high intellect, but Avram, a person who affects others. So the ability for Avram to become the true person that he had to become is not just because there was a necessity that someone needed something. Avram needed to be communicative. So you can look at it two ways. It means a person can say, I could be myself. Someone needs me, I'm here to help them. But I'm rather mind my own business and live my own life. So Hashem is telling Avram, that's not the idea. It's not just that someone else needs you. You need to go out there and to affect others in order to find who you really are. So when he says, Avram, so there we see that it's a Yerida. That Avram, seemingly the name really of Avraham is a higher name. But now we're saying that the hidden, so to say, his treasure, his inner treasure of his Seichel Hanelam, of his higher intellect, which was his own thing, now he has to bring it down to the world. So it's a Yerida to go from Avram to Avraham, although that there's an elevation within Avram himself. Achinian, he says like this. Seemingly, one thinks this. He says, "Mashem Taisav like hey." What does it mean that he got a hey in his name? Hu hey ilah. It's an elevated hey, meaning to say we know that there's first of all there's two heys in Hashem's name, Yud K and Vav K. So there's two heys in Hashem's name. So he says, "Hu hey ilah is the elevated hey in Hashem's name." Ubezar Yisrael it says v'gabe v'aved levihu. So what does it mean who? That the service of the Levi is who? That's one of the ways you stop the pasuk, right? That the service of the Levi is who? The hiddenness. Who dad atika, to take, you want to take out the pleasure. Atik is the pleasure. There's the two levels if you were to make a chart. So the keser, the crown of Hashem, is made up of pleasure and want, which in Hebrew is called tainug and ratzon, which is above the head. Chachma is already in the head. It's part of the character within the person, and then goes on to understanding and to wisdom, to knowledge, and then the seven midos. So to take all the way from the pleasure motivates, triggers the want, right? What do you want? What gives you pleasure? So the ratzon is an outcome of that you have a pleasure in something. Pleasure is less understood. Ratzon's already understood, and Ratzon's already formulating a plan that goes into Chachma that actually makes the plan, and then you understand the plan, etc. So he says, Da Atika goes all the way up to Atik pleasure. She's Galas Atik, where do we have the revelation of the pleasures in Bina? Like I said before, if you don't understand something properly, so you can't take pleasure in it because you don't have a full picture. Because pleasure, Tainug in Bina, not in Chachma, although Chachma is higher. So just again, for those who have not come across this before, Chachma is the initial idea. But it's for instance, in the biology, it's the seed from the father, and the Bina is the mother develops the baby. That's why Ema Banim Smecha. Bina is by the mother usually. So the mother, she develops into something. But where's the pleasure? It means when you look at it, if you were to look at a seed of a child and look at the finished product, where's the pleasure? Where does everyone take nachas? Not to know that the father had a seed, but that there's a child that came out of it. So that's the atik is in Bina. Although Chachma is the initial seed. Ki Chachma nikra Eden. Chachma is called Eden, the place of Eden. There's no pleasure yet because it's still very limited. Although everything is there in the seed. Because we said before that the atik is the place of pleasure. Pleasure is beyond the chachma, beyond the understanding. Because the chachma yet is still only a nekuda dot, a yud in Hashem's name, or a seed. It hasn't been developed yet or revealed yet. It hasn't been revealed yet. It only gets revealed through bina, which is nekuda behechala, which is as a team. What is nekuda behechala? It means proper. Bina also has a vulnerability. If a person doesn't stay focused on the chachma and just lets the chachma trigger an idea, and the idea starts going wild without any focus, that means the ultimate tension that creates a healthy relationship between chachma and bina is what's called nekuda be'echaloi, the dot in the room. So the heichel of the room is the space, which is the hay, which is Hashem's name, which is bina, understanding, broadening. But when you broaden it, you know that there's a dot. There's an essential point here that you're trying to get to. You're not just using it as a trigger to start rambling. When you have someone starts going from idea to idea to idea to idea, that's not chachma and bina. That's just you started your bina process and you're losing focus. You're off track, right? So in order to have that balance and that tension, is you have the chachma there. This is what we're trying to accomplish, but we're broadening this idea. So you never lose the chachma. It's the dot that's in the room. But the dot has to be expanded into a room. So that's called nekuda behechala, the dot in the room, in the chamber. Nekeva to save gever, the woman, the female, which is bina, which is surrounding the man, which is the nekuda, the point. Shemakabel sa'aratika, and to get there, she gets the pleasure. Why is the pleasure there? Because only there's understanding. There's only the development of the idea, the development of what we're trying to develop over here only comes in its full being, or its initial full being is in the bina. And he says why. So the thing is, what forces, so to say, that chachma, the initial idea, should be broadened and come to bina. Why can the seed just stay as a seed? An apple seed just stay on the shelf and in a cup. So it's there. It's a seed. If you would put it in the ground, it could become a tree. But does it have to does it have to go into the ground? It still doesn't lose its identity as a seed. So what motivates the seed to want to become a tree? There has to be a higher power, and that's the time. That's the pleasure. The pleasure is forcing that there should be an understanding. It means it's not that understanding only brings the pleasure. The pleasure motivates that there should be an understanding, because you want to understand it. So therefore, the pleasure says, "Let me reveal myself," and that can only happen through understanding. Okay, these are difficult Mammarim, but we're getting somewhere. Well, Haven's a hativ to understand this. He says, "We talk about King Solomon. And one of the things about King Solomon was that he says 3,000 examples. Now, there's two ways. I just was learning Rambam on the way over here. There's two ways to understand that King Solomon gave 3,000 examples. Right? You could say that on one idea he was able to give 3,000 examples to a single idea, right? Or you could say that the depth. It means is it a question of width, or is it a question of depth? So if it's width, so you have, this is one example to this idea, a second example to this, a third example to this idea. Each example is its own example, no direct connection. Maybe one example completes something that's missing in the first example, so you need the second example. But each one is its own example. Like, if Rashi gives a few answers on a single pasuk, it's not going deeper and deeper. It's just a separate answer that maybe you need the separate answers to understand the full story. But or you could say 3,000 examples is deeper and deeper. Like the Rambam brings down 2 examples in impurity, right? So if you have impurity in a Rishus HaYachid in a private domain, it could be that the doubt of the impurity is if it was in this room, if it was in this room, what was it? And if it was really tummy, and if I really touched it. So it means within the suffix, the doubt itself, you're going deeper and deeper, deeper. There's less certainty if you're really tummy, right? If you walk into a room that maybe has something that's impure and makes you impure, the question is how deep is the doubt? It means it could be it was never in the room, and even if it was in the room, it could be it wasn't tummy, it could be you never touched it. It means it's going deeper and deeper. Or the second example he gives, if you're in a public domain and there's 10 insects, none of them are impure, and one of them is pure. So you could have touched any one of the 10, and we say you touched the pure one, you didn't become impure. So that's called width. So he says over here, what's the idea of the 3,000 examples of King Solomon? We see Shachacham, you have a wise person. Even if you know something yourself, it's not a guarantee that what you know you could articulate and explain to someone else. It means to go from knowing something to explaining something, you have to really apply yourself. He says the kasher daite to connect your mind deeply. What and how much are you able to explain? And to bring them into an example. Means if you can't just say it the way you understand it, because you're the teacher and that's the student. So in order for the student to understand it, you have to know what parts of it are you going to reveal and how you're going to reveal it, and what examples are you going to give from the person who will understand. The example will take from that example the knowledge, the idea you're trying to give over, right? So a lot of people know the mashal, they know the example of what's the nimshal, what are you trying to say over here? So he says, so that takes another whole talent. You have to understand what you're trying to explain and how much of it you're trying to explain, and how do you use examples so the student can understand. That a person can understand this wise idea in simple things, in low things that the person could relate to. Right, so when you teach a child something, the child could relate to certain things. Right, you go 2 candies and 2 candies, 1 + 1 = 2. So that's a simple idea for the child to understand. But to take an idea and to bring it down to be understood from chachma, that the students should understand it, that you need extremely wise, a much more wise person. And that's what he's saying. In order for chachma to come to bina, there has to be coming from the pleasure. There has to be a higher place that pushes an idea down. The idea itself is not enough for it to be expressed. It's only this extremely wise person who knows how to take a great idea and to make it sound simple for the student to understand. Because Shlomi had tremendous understanding, he was able to go 3,000 levels deep and wide. He goes lower and lower and lower until the person climbed the ladder of the examples, one example up 3,000, until the student was able to get to the information that King Solomon was trying to say. And then he was able to give over the idea that he wanted to articulate. And that takes the wisest of all men. The wisest of all people has to be a person who's able to really, really understand an idea and really, really know how to take that idea and to articulate it in the way that the student should understand it. It's not means we have sometimes teachers that like to tell the students what they know, means how smart I am, the teacher is, but not necessarily how smart that doesn't benefit the student as far as the knowledge goes. So we want to bring something down. The person can understand it broadly. It has to come from a higher point than the idea itself. It's not just enough to have an idea, to have chachma, the keser, the pleasure that's beyond the chachma, that it's pushing it to be understood. And that's pushing it's like pushing the gravity, it's pushing it down. The chachma has to come to be developed into understanding. Then it can be revealed. This is an idea on its own. And it will never come to understanding. The seed itself is not going to jump into the ground. There has to be something that puts it there. And when a person understands what is the fuel behind that you're trying to understand an idea, is that there's a pleasure here. And the pleasure needs to be felt. And in order for the pleasure to be felt, it has to be understood. And that motivates that the chachma should go into bina. And although it's, yes, nekuda be'echolad is the dot in the room, means that's the initial idea that gets expanded. But to not stay just a seed and to become into an idea there's a motivation. The motivation is the pleasure that's going to be accomplished by that understanding. By yoda because there's a time, there's a pleasure. Through that, it's going to reveal archav and broadness. So therefore, he says v'afkan also over here. We're talking about Avram. Liyois, at the top of page 5. In order to understand the broadness of an understanding of an idea, yud, right? How do we go from a yud to hey, chachma bechinas nekuda, chachma, which is a dot, which is a single idea, and you have to broaden it. You have to take it apart. It's not like a small idea. The idea is totally concentrated into a small space, into a small dot. How do we broaden it to an idea? Why they gil bechinas yes, it has to come from a higher place. Bechinas atik, like I said before, that's the pleasure. And in the shape of the yud, we see that. That's bechinas koitzei shel yud. The reason why, again, we know that Kabbalistic teaching teaches us that the shapes of the letters teach us about the letters. The reason why hey is bina is because it's a square space. Yud is a dot. Therefore, it's a small. It's contracted into a small dot of a space. However, if one analyzes the shape of the yud, there's a little point going up and a point going down. The point going up is the point that's being pushed. That's the tainug that's pushing downwards. That the yud should go down to the bottom point, and the bottom point goes into the hay. So the yud goes into the hay. That's why there's a point above and a point below. It's called koitzei shel yud. In the soul, that's the essence of the soul. The koitzei shel yud. When you talk about the essence of the soul, is before even the yud of the soul is the koitzei shel yud, is the tip of the yud going upwards. And we go as shayud yesh like gimel koitzin. There's three points of a yud. And we koitzah tachten, and from the bottom point going downwards is nimshach hey, comes the bina understanding. And what is the common point between the two points? The upper point is the pressure pushing the yud to go downwards. So there's a connection, there's an agenda, so to say, between the two points of the yud. And therefore, it's the reason why it's not that it falls down from chachma to bina; it has to be pushed down. The upper point pushes it to go down to the lower point. And that's the idea that in the bina is the pleasure, is the keser, is the crown. Means chachma itself would remain as is. Okay, this is all we're trying to say is, what does Avram have to do? Avram himself is the chachma. He has to come down. Hashem's telling lechacha. You can't stay with a hidden that has no ideas. It can't be revealed at all. You must reveal yourself, and yes, it's a process, and it's a yerida, and you have to go down, and you have to travel. It says Avram traveled south. Chesed va'ad beis kel. He had to go all the way down to beis kel. Malchus, the receptacle. What's beis kel? Kel is chesed. Bayis is a house, the house of kel, meaning the house of chesed, the receptacle of chesed, which is malchus. He's going from above down. And because of that, he's also going from below up. He says it in shorthand. Hashem hanira ad Hashem stam. So in the first part, when you're going downwards, he says he went down to Hashem, to God that revealed himself. That is, you're going down to the revelation. Like we said, Avram is going down to Avraham. Avram is going to Areka, and through that, you're going to find your purpose. You're going to go take the high idea, the high pleasure, and bring it into the world, that it should be felt. The creation, the yesh, should be nullified to Hashem. And that's Hashem Anira. You're bringing the revelation. But through that, you have M'amar the Rebbe. You also have from below up, which is Hashem Stam without the revelation, because you're going beyond the revelation. We'll see what that means. What's this all mean in our service of Hashem? Is he Nayam says Naivlas Chacham Shemaila Torah? What is from the essence of the Chacham of Hashem? The Naivlas is like the residue of the Chacham is Torah. It means because Torah seemingly is simple laws. Some of them don't do this, do that, but there's much deeper essence to that law. Although we look at the Torah, and Torah tells us physical things. So even if it's a mitzvah that's not connected to Bein Adam L'Chaveroi, or it could be a mitzvah like esrog, right? An esrog is a mitzvah that's a holy mitzvah. It's something that's about kedusha. But nevertheless, it's a davar gashmi. It's a physical thing. It comes from the level of chachma that's not understood. The essence of God's chachma is not understood. So how do you touch it? Means when you study the Torah, the law of the Torah, this is the question that comes down constantly. Is it the studying? Is it the study that we're doing, or is it the mitzvah? What's the greater? Right? The Gemara debated for years. The house of Shammai, the house of Hillel. Is Torah Gadol? Is Talmud Torah Gadol? Is Ma'aseh Gadol? It's not just a question to figure out what's greater. Hey, Ariel, it's a deep question to figure out the purpose of things and how does it work in the circle of things. So he's saying this. Listen, the Chachma itself, the Torah itself, the law itself is God's wisdom. But the wisdom is not something you can really touch. So, where do you get the essence is the bottom line. At the end of the day, God says it's not about the law of the esrog. It's take the esrog. When you take the esrog, it has in it everything. When you study the law of it, you have as much as you understand. In that is God's wisdom, and you're connecting with God's wisdom. That's why there's the mile of Torah. But do you have everything in your understanding? No, you only understand what you can understand. But when you hold the esrog, in that esrog, no matter what, you're holding everything is there. The whole idea is there in that esrog, whether you understand it or not. That's what he's saying. To really understand God's wisdom is not possible to comprehend. But the way the mitzvah comes down into physical form. When you take the esrog, for example, as an example from other mitzvahs. By the end of the day is, if that's a kosher esrog, together with the kosher lulav and hadas and arava done properly, so then in that bottom line is all the God's wisdom, whether you understand it or not. Then you're holding God's wisdom. Because the reason why that's a mitzvah is because God decided it to be so, whether you understand it or not. And how do we bring down God's, so to say, inner wisdom into physical things? It's the pleasure that God takes in us doing mitzvahs. Torah itself comes from God's wisdom. That's the revealed laws. But the source of the mitzvah is from God's pleasure. The 630 mitzvahs, and Zayin the Rabbanim, which are called Terach, 620, which make up the word Keser. Amudei Or, the pillars of light. That's what's called the white part of the skull, beyond the brain. That means the skull seemingly has nothing. It has everything. That's the real ratzon of Hashem, the real mitzvah of Hashem, the want of Hashem is how you perform the mitzvah. And therefore, to study the mitzvah with all its details and all the halachas, and as much as you know, you're limited to what's really happening. But when you grasp the mitzvah, when you perform the mitzvah, so Shebechinas Keser, that's the crown, Shebechinas Malchus Leintzav, that's the level of the infinite of Hashem. And by doing the mitzvah, you're bringing down that God's want, because you're doing what Hashem wants. That when you learn the parsha of Kaddish Liko Bechor, that the first of the firstborn has to be for the kohen, and that's a parsha that's connected to Chachma. It's the Chachma. It's the mitzvah component of the Chachma. Because the mitzvah of it, the ratzon, God's want, is beyond the knowledge itself or the wisdom itself, especially the wisdom that we can understand. Therefore, the only real way to connect to the essence of God is through physical things, because God decided that His ratzon, His want, is fulfilled through the mitzvah, and the mitzvah is only done through a physical way, in a physical way with physical things. For instance, a person to give charity. At that moment, you're giving charity. It's connecting. It's making a oneness in the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation. Much higher than any pleasure the souls could take. Because the pleasures that the soul takes is a pleasure of some sort of understanding. But the essence of what's happening is in the mitzvah itself. That's why it says better to be in this world. Because in this world, you're connected to what's happening. In the world to come, you're taking pleasure as much as you can in what happened and what you've done in your lifetime. So he says, Shemit Tzedek, that when a person gives tzedakah, you take justice, and nasa tzedakah becomes charity, means you add the hay, like it says, ad until there's not a receptacle. She's called nara. Until you want nara, it has to be the hay, the receptacle. When you receive something, the person changes. The mitzvah happens. It has to be, there's the giving and taking. There has to be the mashpi and the makabel. And therefore he says, because you need to have this commandment now. He's going back. So Hashem, this is what Hashem's telling Avram. All this is the message Hashem is telling Avram. Lech lecha, you have to go, you have to reveal. The point of creation is to reveal godliness down to this world. Chachma itself is an idea. And even especially, it's an idea that's not even understood. It's seichel nelam. It's so hidden v'chol rayin from any understanding. You could take the highest level, and in order for there to be the fulfillment of the purpose, it has to go down, and it comes down through mitzvahs. And you have to come down, and that's how you become Avram Goyim, a father of nations, by bringing the lights, the sparks, attracting all the sparks that got lost and bringing them back to holiness. But it has to be done through mitzvahs. But it also has to be done through a commandment. God has to tell Avram Lachlecha. That's what he says. We don't know anything about Avram really before. For instance, he didn't start feeding people only when he came to Eretz Yisrael, because it says clearly he came with people that his people, him and Sarah made people. They had people that they're chevra, they're students, they're people that they influenced. It means they were doing mitzvahs before, but we don't talk about it. Why? He comes to Israel. He was already 75 years old. He did a lot. Before Hashem told him, Lech Lecha, he didn't have the power to accomplish tikkun, fix. And didn't do anything. Means, again, this is the difference. For instance, for a non-Jew to take an esrog, or for a Jew to take an esrog, not during Sukkot, there's no mitzvah happening. The mitzvah, it's not the esrog that's the ruts and the want of Hashem. It's the mitzvah. That's the way the mitzvah has to be done with the esrog in its time. So if a non-Jew takes the esrog on Sukkot, or a Jew takes an esrog outside Sukkot, there's no yichud, there's no unification. It's not like a small unification or less of unification. There's no mitzvah here. Same thing over here by Avram. Until Hashem told him Lech Lecha, there was no yichud, there was no unification. God had to tell him. He didn't reveal him. The commandment was the beginning of the mission. God gave empowered Avram. Lech Lecha. Until then, he didn't have the power to reveal, to bring the hidden into the revealed. Only after the commandment of Lech Lecha could what we do affect the revelation, the want of Hashem. And when did it really come into full form is when God gave Matan Torah. In order for the Jewish people to be able to properly do our Avodah of Lech Lecha after Matan Torah is because our fathers prepared us. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Kamashakasav, V'Seira, Sambi, Yisrael, Aidei Yisrael, through Yaakov. Avram nimshach yamin chesed, through Avram is chesed, and through Yitzchak is gvura, and through Yaakov is tferes. They were, like the Rebbe always says, a ma'isa of a similar banim. It's in the sinas koyach. Our fathers gave us. They invested, so we should be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish after Matan Torah. This is the whole book of Beraishit. Shema mitzvahs haTorah. There's no mitzvahs, no commandments for the Torah. The Torah starts, best case, achodesh zelachem, like Rashi says, middle of at the end of the exile. Parshas Avram, Parshas Yitzchak. What's the idea of Avram and Yitzchak? Shem koidim haTorah, before giving of the Torah. They made it possible. They're the setting, the beginning for us to be able to accomplish what we have to accomplish in the giving of the Torah. Okay, so we need to go a little further. So you asked the question. Okay, so we understand the Avodah. The Avodah is Lech Lecha. He said very shortly the second part of M'amar the Rebbe, but there's also an elevation. Not just we bring the godliness down, we have to elevate up. But why do we have to go through hardships in life to get there? Where's the hardships coming there? Why is there Mitzrayim? We see that we had Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Why couldn't Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov have lived? And they established the family. And after whatever the time was ready, same time that we got the Torah, we lived in Eretz Yisrael. We never went to Mitzrayim. Let's say the story never happened. We stayed in Eretz Yisrael. And at some point, Moshe Rabbeinu came and told the Jewish people, he's the leader. Now we're going to the next Shlav Bet. We're going to the next part, and that's going to be the revelation of Torah now. Now we're moving on to the next stage. Why do we have to go to the Mitzrayim in between? We see clearly that one of the conditions, and Avram was told this condition. And for those who know the Gemara says that the vision that we have in this week's parsha of the Bris Ben Absarim was before Avram even left Haran. It was before when he was 70. It was before he was 75. So why do they have to go to Mitzrayim first? They had to have a bitter life, slavery of working, the chaymer, the levanim, all the hard work and the bricks. Like our fathers paved the path. Why do we have to go through the difficulties? וגם היכול לעשות כל ייחודים כאלה שנימול. כי המילה ניתן לה אחר כך, show tzaddik test, like I asked before. When did he get the Mila? Sorry, when he was 99, not when he was 90. Sorry, 99. He was 90 when he had Yishmael. When he was 99, he did the bris Mila. So he for many years he was doing things before. Like this, it said like this. Kiyama Avram akol Torah kula ve'echi niach tefillin asher nisker sham yitzis Mitzrayim v'azadayin lo yahayu klal galas Mitzrayim. And we have to understand in general. It says that Avram kept the Torah. What do you mean he kept the Torah? A lot of the parts of the Torah connected to stories that never happened to Avram. In the tefillin that he wore, if he wore tefillin, he's saying he kept Torah. He wore tefillin. If he wore tefillin, tefillin talks about the exile of Egypt. He never went to Egypt. He went to Egypt, not the experience that we're talking about. Every mitzvah has the inner component of the mitzvah and the outer component of the mitzvah. It's the same question. For instance, the angels say to God, "Why are you giving the Torah to the Jewish people?" So God says to Moshe, "Answer. What's Moshe answer? You never went to Mitzrayim. You don't have fathers and mothers. You don't have jealousy." So what was the Havamim? Why did the angels think that they should have the Torah in the first place? It has nothing to do with it. The idea is that there's pnimis and chesainis. There's the inner part of Torah, which is the ideas of Mitzrayim, but it's not actually Mitzrayim. The ideas of fathers and mothers, the ideas of hate and jealousy. And then there's the actual jealousy, the actual Mitzrayim, the actual father and mother, the things that Moshe answered. So he says there's the chesainis and there's pnimius. That God initially tells Avram, it's the revealing the inner component of the mitzvah. But that it should come into the physical, external of the world. That you should be able to actually take a physical animal and turn it into tefillin or a mezuzah. Or the mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs that Avram and Sarah did, and afterwards, it's not something that you could evolve to. In order to be able to take something physical and turn it spiritual, they had to go through Galus Mitzrayim. This is one of the foundations of Chassidus. That in order to for something that's so distant from godliness, that should become holy, that you have to first break it, and break it, the bitterness of it. Or so to say, that process of the bitterness, like it says, the seed can't become a tree until it dissolves. So and hard work. But Nasi's Gaz and that revealed above, so to say, the evolving, above the system of creation. And then you could take what's beyond, once you get out of the system of creation, then there's no more limits. And then you could take something very godly and bring it down to something material. Because then you get above creation, and that only comes through bitterness, through breaking yourself. You can't slide into it. So then above and below is equal. Why is heaven more holy than earth? Because in the higher level, everything, even the highest world, is considered like an action of God. God created the world in a way of action. This idea, the difference between a line and a circle. A line has a starting point and has a finishing point. So you say, how can I take a starting point which is much higher and bring it down to the finish point? The only way to do it is if you go out of a line, you go into a circle. Circle is equal. Everywhere is the top. Everywhere is the bottom. There's no top, there's no bottom. So he says that the Ratzon, Arach is the Ratzon of Hashem, the circle of the Ratzon is equally around the feet, all the way down to the feet of creation. Because it comes when you go through a bitter experience, you get out of your space, you go from the line to the circle, and you're able to have, then you have the revelation that's makif, that's encompassing energy, that's beyond creation, and therefore the whole world of Atzilus, everything is there. And where does God want to be? He wants to be found in the action of the mitzvah. And only then, through the experience of difficulties, that you kind of get out of yourself. It's the question is what I mean. This is a long conversation. We have only a few more minutes left. But the general question of Mitzrayim is basically whether the nation of the Jewish people, or the person as an individual, have to experience difficulties to achieve great things, is because as you've been created, you're very defined, very square, you're never going to go out of yourself. You're never going to, like Lech Lecha, even the beginning for Lech Lecha, even for Avram, he had to go out of himself. You need to go out of yourself, out of your limitations, to experience things, to experience your moed, your limitlessness. I mean, each person. What to me could be, I can feel limitless, is someone else's a very limited experience, but it's about me. what's beyond my limitations, your limitations. In order to get to the level of your potential, to connect to the God's potential, so to say, what God really wants from you, is you need to get out of yourself, and that experience only happens through Mitzrayim. And then all of a sudden you could take something physical that seemingly would not be holy, right? Holy for me is the shul. What's it have to do with my food? What's it have to do with my house? What's it have to do with my family? What's it have to do with why I'm working? Right? So let me work because I want to work, and then I go to shul and I daven. But to make it all one, which is circle, to go, because then you have a line, but you want to go to circle. Everything's the beginning. Everything is one story. Is you have to get out of yourself, and that's the idea of Mitzrayim. And he says Avram, but he says Avram even though Avram was lech lecha, didn't go through Mitzrayim, and therefore he was only able to get to the inner part of the mitzvah. Therefore, Avram didn't make tefillin holy. He wasn't able to make the physical, the materials holy. Only it stayed b'chitzayin. He was able to serve Torah in a pneumistic way. When he became 99, God gave him a special gift. He wasn't doing the concept of circumcision. He was actually able to do the physical idea of circumcision on his body. Because God wanted Yitzchak to come from such a process. That Yaakov should come from Yitzchak. Hashem didn't want the foreskin to be part of Yitzchak's story, or definitely not Yaakov's story. And then they could receive the Torah, that they should be able to bring the physical, make the material into something holy. Avram was not able to get the Torah because he already had Yishmael by that time. He was 90 when he had Yishmael. He went through some sort of physical change, and he gave birth to Yitzchak. They were able to do the mitzvahs. Ha'ora, which is igulim, to connect to the circle as opposed to the line. Because when it comes to the circle, then it's all equal top and above. And he said, he continues with this idea that Abram had to leave Haran. Haran is the anger. He had to go. That's the same idea. And he finishes off the difference between B'Shem Hashem or B'Shem Anira love, but we'll have to study that on our own. And I want to wish everyone a Laila Tov. Again, the Mammar of Torah Or, we have to do an adjustment from Likutei Torah to Torah Or. It's difficult to Torah Or Mammarim, although they're shorter. And we'll try to explain them the best that we can. And as if you'll notice, we started a new thing this year. We're not going to learn the parsha that we learned, but we're going to learn the parsha that we're going to read. So instead of learning what we've studied in Shul on Shabbos, meaning we've read Noach, but this year, we learned the Torah Or Noach before. And so too, this week, we learned Lech Lecha before. And hopefully, we're going to continue that. Next week, we'll learn on Vayera, etc. Laila Tov, everyone. Take care.
Laila Tov, Rabbi. Thank you so much.